Everybody, welcome back to Rationable Conversations. Today we have a very special guest, as we do every episode, but this time it's Anand from Pale Blue Thoughts. I've been wanting to have this interview for a very long time. Anand, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you
Finally,
very much, Anand. Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
stars,
Honored to be here.
the stars have aligned.
Finally. Yeah, we've been trying to
Tarot
get to,
cards. The tarot cards have been laid out.
yeah, all Jupiter is in Uranus.
Oh, that hurts.
Oh, no, I know it would.
I got my tarot card read when I
Mhm.
went to where was this? This was in Shillong. And
Okay.
there was a tarot reader sitting in the lobby, and I just went down there and my parents were having breakfast and I finished a little early. So I thought, hey, let me just let's see what they've got to offer. And surely enough, it wasn't much. In fact, I told her everything, and then
Good.
she told me very vague general stuff.
That's exactly how astrology works. You tell them everything, you make it correct.
Very uninspiring. But I on one of these, I don't know, on a website or something, I saw an ad for an astrologer again. I somewhere in Delhi. I did a recording of that. I don't know where that recording has disappeared to, but I did do one and had a nice conversation. But the thing is, you always get these very general answers. Now, the thing is, I've heard about hot readings and
Yeah.
cold readings. Let me just get this straight. What are hot readings? Or when wait, no, cold readings is when the person doesn't know you and then starts guessing stuff, right?
Yeah. Is your name start with A or B or C or D? I hear something, I think you have something like a moon or a sun in your name.
Oh,
Chanda.
I am, and I'm someone's son.
Yeah, there you go.
Amazing. But I really expected more coming from a tarot reader to be able to do a little bit more of a cold reading. Like I'll put a little bit more skill into it because I was sitting there hoping that she'd floor me and I'd be like, wow, that's amazing. And so I was like, and this was around the time when I was actually in the process of getting divorced. So I said, so I'm married. How do you think my marriage is going to go? And she said, it'll be difficult. There'll be ups and downs, but you'll get
People have
through it.
all the
You'll get through it. I certainly hope so. I did get through it. I lost a lot of cash, as did my family, and but we did get through it. One way or the other, we did. There were lots of ups and downs, and so she got that part right. But she that was the vaguest possible answer I could possibly get from anybody else, and it was the entire thing was just. Yes, it's going to be fine. Yes, you're going to be happy. There'll be some trials and tribulations, but you'll get through it. But you'll get through it. But you'll get through it. It was like, man, these guys really aren't trying their best. Really not.
see, that's how it actually works. Because see, nobody goes to an astrologer when you have just won $1 million lottery, right?
Uh,
You think, oh, I won $1 million. Let me see why my stars are aligned or where my stars are. No, you wouldn't. You would go only when you have problems in your life. And they know that, right? And then they try to get that from you. And you are the one who's feeding everything to them. It is just that people don't realize it. And it is so subtle. And the art of doing it is so subtle. It is somewhat like a mentalist taking things out from you. You are feeding that person, and then they give it back to you, saying that this is how it is. Like in your case, the marriage, trials, tribulations. Which marriage doesn't go through all that? It's general statements that makes you feel, oh, he's telling me something that is really right about my life. No, they don't. They're just fooling you. They're just cheating you. They're just taking your money. Simple as that.
yeah.
No questions about it.
So you've done several shows, several episodes on astrology for sure. Just in case as you've been living under a rock, Anand has a channel called Pale Blue Thoughts on YouTube. If you don't subscribe to it, you should subscribe to it right now. It is phenomenal. The kind of content he puts out is phenomenal. Top notch. Absolutely top notch. And I have been an admirer of yours for quite a while. And sorry. Anyway, but the primary thing is the episodes I really enjoy is astrology because I've been wanting to do an episode on astrology for a very long time. I just haven't managed to break it down. I've done Western astrology. So I've interviewed Susan Gerbic, and she's given me a lot of insight on the Western style of astrology. But I really wanted to do one on the Indian one, and especially on this Nadi thing, which I've I watched your episode. I watched most of your episode. I have to admit I haven't managed to finish the whole thing, but hopefully we can get a little bit into it. I have a friend who is a hardcore believer in the whole Nadi patra astrology, and she is convinced that it is probably the most accurate form of astrology that exists. And they're supposed to have these palm leaves or something in that's supposed to have your future written in them. And I looked up some of the videos, and they were exactly as you had described them. This is all about they rattle off some gibberish and then they ask you a question, and then it's either a yes or no question. And based on that, they either flip over a new leaf, literally, or they set it aside and pick up a new book and then they go through that. For those who haven't watched your in-depth video, and I would advise you that after we watch this conversation, that we go into that, and all our viewers actually go and watch that video. I'll link it in the description. So, what exactly is going on? What's the concept behind it? What are those leaves supposed to hold?
Okay. See, can I go through astrology first so that people get a background of it and then go into Nadi astrology? Would that be okay with you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. But before I go into astrology as well, there is something this is how I started my video podcast on astrology as well, or the video series on astrology. There are 4 parts of it, but what I did was I started with the story of the sky series, right? Because it is very important that a person who believes in astrology should know where it all started from
Of course.
and then move on to how it became a fraudulent or a scam. And then we move into Nadi astrology, which is a nice flow. This is what I feel would be interesting to the viewers as well as anybody who wants to understand why this is a scam. Right?
Yeah.
The sky is something which we generally tend to ignore these days because we don't need to look at the sky anymore during these days. Think about our ancestors around, let's say, 4,000, 5,000 years ago. And I don't mean our ancestors, the entire human ancestors. I don't specifically look at the Indian ancestral bit because as although India roots astrology did not originate from India. That is a fact.
Oh, really? Where did it originate from?
Astrology originated from Babylonia, Mesopotamia, those regions.
Oh, okay.
Mainly Babylonia, Iraq, Iran, those Persian places. So they were the ones who actually developed this system of not astrology, I would rather say classical astronomy. Astrology came much later.
Like a proto astronomy, like before actual astronomy started happening. They were trying to see if what the meaning the stars might hold for us.
No, they did not even talk about the meaning of the stars at all. They were not concerned about that. They were concerned about what the sky told us. Because the sky, for us, it is no longer important. But for them, it was a matter of life and death.
Mm.
To yours, I will tell you that had those people not looked at the sky and understood the sky as it is, we wouldn't be here. Our culture, our civilization wouldn't have existed had it not been for the people who actually looked at the sky and understood it. The agricultural revolution actually has roots, so to speak, in the sky. Because had they not understood it, no agricultural revolution, no human civilization. It is as critical as that. So if you actually look at the sky, even today, the morning sky does not give us anything at all. The morning sky is pretty much just the sun and what we call as the sky, because we know that the sky is an illusion, right?
Yeah.
There is nothing called a sky there. Even if you go 10 meters, 100 meters, 1 kilometer, you will not touch something known as the sky. It's the atmosphere that we are seeing through scattering. But the night sky provided them with quite a lot of information. They saw these twinkling things in the sky. They wondered what it was.
Hmm.
They didn't know what it was. They didn't know that there were stars or whatever it was. But they noticed that these sky, this held a pattern. Every night you would see certain amount of twinkling things, and they posed a certain pattern, they created a certain pattern in the sky, which we now call as constellations.
Yeah.
And they found out that all these constellations lay in one specific band in the sky, not everywhere. Although there were stars everywhere, they looked at certain patterns which were in certain band, about I think it's about 18 degrees in the sky. And that they called as the zodiac. And it's the same with Western, the same with the Indian as well. So I understand that you want to keep more of Indian. I will come to the Indian bit, but
Sure, sure.
basically this is the same. Right? The zodiac is the same.
Hmm.
Now they noticed that the patterns in the sky remained the same. But they noticed that within these patterns there were certain twinkling objects which kept going from one star pattern to the other, specific order, right?
Hmm.
These things, like if you're standing in an assembly, a school assembly, it is like somebody going from standard 8A to standard 6 and standing there, right? And then from there going to standard 4. So you notice that some child is moving from one place to another, right? Within the orderly pattern.
Yeah.
They called it wandering, and then from the Greek word planete came the word planets. So they actually thought that the earth was in the center and everything moved from around the earth,
Hmm.
right? You would have the sun moving around the earth, you would have the moon moving around the earth, you have all these twinkling things called planets moving around the earth. So basically, they thought that we are stationary
Hmm.
and everything moved around us. Okay. Now, this is actually the classical astronomy bit came from. So what they thought was things moving around us. Now we know today that no, they're not moving around us. We are moving around, except the moon, of course, which moves around us. Everything else, we are the ones who are doing the rotation. Right?
As in, or at least we have a common center of rotation and we're all circling, we're rotating around the sun.
And that is the same. Let's call it the solar system. Let's talk about the solar system first. So we have these planets. Now, if you look at the Navagrahas, what the Indian astronomy taught us, the Navagrahas had sun.
Hmm.
It did not have Earth. It had Mercury, Venus, no Earth, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Those are the seven ones.
Hmm.
And then two Rahu and Ketu, which they knew they were not planets. They knew there were two specific locations in the sky, what we call as ascending node and descending node today. It is basically those 2 points where the sun's ecliptic and the moon's ecliptic, the orbital paths, cross over, where we get our eclipses.
Ah.
So those were Rahu and Ketu. So that made the Navagrahas or the nine planets that they considered. But today we know we had nine until 2006 when we dismissed poor Pluto out of the list. And we have Uranus and Neptune as well, which they don't consider as planets. And then they don't consider it as they didn't consider it as planets because they couldn't see them. Because you had to, if you had to see Uranus and Neptune, you need telescopes. Right? It is very tough to see Uranus without something else.
Without a mirror.
You needed telescopes to see them. So that's why they didn't get included.
Hmm.
In those days, what they saw was that these patterns repeated every 6 months or 2 months or 3 months, depending on which star they were looking at. So they saw some patterns in the sky. They saw three stars aligned somewhat like a triangle, and they saw it as a horse's head. And they called it Ashwini, or that is the star Ashwini, the constellation Ashwini in Indian astrology or Indian astronomy. We can call it classical astronomy. So they noticed certain patterns. They noticed that when certain stars rose up, they had rains coming through. Savan, for instance. Like you have Savan in the north of India, we have Karkatakam in the south of India, which are basically star patterns in the sky. When they come in the sky in the night, we get rains because they come during the monsoon season.
Ah,
So for them, it was very important that they know these things when stars would come up, when these planets would come up, because that is when agriculture was starting. And they were starting to leave the hunter-gatherer lifestyle and try to settle down in one place. And for that, agriculture was very important. In fact, if you read Yuval Noah Harari, he coins agricultural civilization as one of the starting points of the human civilization as such.
absolutely.
So for them, it was very important because let's say, for instance, I sow a seed tomorrow, and for the next 3 months, it is summer, then those plants won't grow. Or it is the continuous rain for the next 2 months, then the seeds will just get not blown away, they will get washed away.
Yeah,
Right? So for them, that knowledge was really critical. And that is where astronomy helped. And what they did was they recognized these patterns, gave them names, put stories in them so that you would remember them. It's just like how we do mnemonics today.
yeah,
So for them, mnemonics was they built stories around it. I've also made a video called The Real Scientific Story of Durga. So this whole story of Durga
mhm,
is based around certain star groups, Virgo and Thi. And I don't remember the exact ones now. But if you see that, you can put it in the description as well. You would know this is how they built stories. The whole story of Durga has significance in the stars. They wanted to remember that story, so they gave it names and characters, and that's how it all got built. So for them, the sky was everything,
yeah,
right? And what happened after that was that as we progressed through the civilizations, we started to invent things like calendars and clocks and all that, right? Maybe the first things were sundials and stuff like that, but we soon realized that we didn't need to look at the sky that much, right? So then these people, don't forget that not all people in those days knew how to read the stars or read the sky. Only certain people knew how to read it, right? And those people started to lose their significance and importance. So what they did was they introduced greed and fear into this whole mix, like they do with anything others, other things like religion and all that. They just mix these things to feed the emotions of greed and fear. And then they came up with this thing called astrology, which is basically giving divinity or giving the prospect that these things could ruin your life or it could lead your life to get better. So these things were introduced primarily for those people who lost their jobs when calendars and clocks came to be.
that's spot to be in.
Yeah. Then what happened is, see, I can tell you that, okay, I have had enough debates with people who study astrology and all kind of people. So they think that what they are studying is true. It's basically some cost fallacy. They think that they are invested so much, they think that there is something in it. I will tell you that there is nothing in it. So I actually made a few notes so that I don't forget stuff.
Yeah,
Now, see, the astrologers, they claim that planets and stars have some influence on us. Right? Let us, for the sake of argument, agree that yes, they do have some influence. Okay. Now, if they do have some influence, then they have some questions that we need to answer. Right? Now, the first question is, when a child is born, what has more influence on the child? A famous equation by Isaac Newton, right? Gm1 m2 by r squared. So the more further away two masses are, gravitational distance or the gravitational force, they massively reduce, right?
it
To
is.
the power squared. Now the earth has a bigger influence on a child or the hospital that the child was born in. or a mountain right next to the hospital perhaps has a more gravitational influence on the child than Jupiter or Mars or whatever.
The entire planet Earth, basically.
Yes. And planet Earth is not considered in astrology at all.
That's the problem.
So
Anyway,
they
that
don't
is,
consider it, which has a much more influence on us as humans.
yeah.
They don't consider it because they didn't know.
There was an interesting concept that a friend of mine thought up as an excuse to justify the possibility of astrology being accurate. And that was basically that what if the Earth has different gravitational levels in different parts of the Earth? And they keep changing. So, therefore, when a person is born in a certain place, there is a certain gravitational effect in that place at that time, which then changes later on and changes for somebody else. And therefore, that determines the person's astrological sign because then you correlate it with the exact time and date through the astronomical charts and the constellations. And I was like, that is not only is it an interesting and intriguing and a very new idea, but it's measurable. And put it to that extent where no we understand that the earth has many different levels of gravity in different parts of the earth, depending on the density of the earth in that area. But they don't keep changing around all over the place. They don't change second by second. They change maybe over millions of years, if at all.
Yeah. So the poles have higher gravity than, so it's 10, almost 10 near the pole. So we do have different gravity at different parts of the globe. But this is not what the astrologers actually consider. If they consider that the influence is due to gravity, then they are going to fall into a bigger pit, which I will come to later.
Okay.
Right? So they better not talk about gravity and all those things when they talk about if that is the influence that these planets have on us. Their influence is observable. Nobody has found out what influence they have. Primarily because there isn't any. That's a simple fact.
Yeah.
Right? There's no influence of on these glittering planets and stars. Right?
Yeah.
If what I was trying to tell you is that the most, if they are talking about gravitational influence, right, then Earth has to have a part in this also.
Yeah.
And the further they go, further something goes from us, then the gravitational pull should come down. For instance, I'll give you an example. Mars, for instance, it moves from 50 million, I think, to 400 million kilometers away. When it comes to closer to the Earth, what we call as aphelion and perihelion.
Yeah.
So when it comes close to around 50 million kilometers away from Earth, and when it goes away, it goes around 400 million. Now, the influence of gravity at that particular time, when it is at 400 and when it is 50, are completely different. But that is not what is considered in astrology. They don't take this into account because they didn't know at the time of making all these things, they didn't know that Mars had this aperian perihelion thing, right? So they didn't know that planets have different orbits and they go at different lengths away from Earth. They all thought that they were standing still in the sky, moving in the same pattern, right?
Yeah.
So they don't consider gravity at all. If they consider gravity, this is the problem. If they tell you that gravity is what is causing the influence, tell them why does Mars have the same influence when it is 400 million kilometers away and when it is at 50 million miles away. They should explain that.
But then they would say that, oh, it all depends about which constellation Mars is in at the time. And that determines how far away it is.
Doesn't matter, no? It's still far away. At 15, if at 15 million kilometers, it has an influence X. Then at 400 million, it should be X minus 400,
Yeah.
right?
Fair
And squared because
enough.
it's GMM into by R squared.
It's called the inverse square law, I think.
Inverse squared, yes.
Yeah, that's the one.
So it should have a lesser influence at 400 million kilometers away.
Yeah,
No,
definitely.
it doesn't. It doesn't. It's the same. It's see the whole point of this horoscope thing. It's about horoscope. I tell you, horoscope is one of the most brilliant inventions that man has ever made. I give it to them. It is one of the most brilliant stuff. The square ones that South Indians use, I think North Indians use a circular one, or they use a mixture of circle and square, I think. Whereas the Europeans use a circular one.
Yeah.
Basically, that actually tells you the time. It is basically a timestamp of where the planets were when something happened.
Yeah.
Okay, let's suppose it is a child is born. So they look at the sky and they can tell which star is in which constellation or is near which constellation. So they mark it. That is all that horoscope chart is.
Yeah.
Now the funny thing about this chart is it can tell you almost everything. If you ask an astrologer, the astrologer will tell you when your marriage will take place, what kind of a job will you have, what kind of a wife will you have, how is your mother-in-law going to behave to you, what is your wife's behavior, habit, everything. But they cannot tell you whether the horoscope belongs to a male or a female if it is not written in the horoscope.
Oh, wow. I had no idea about this.
Because the horoscope is just a timestamp of what where the planets and stars were at a particular instant of time.
Yeah.
Unless you write below it, it belongs to a male or a female. And if you have a horoscope, for instance, you should look at it. It will tell you, it'll be written male child. Because if that is not there, they will not be able to find out. Now, if you find a old horoscope, let's say a 60, 70-year-old horoscope, you take it to an astrologer and ask them, is this person alive or dead? They cannot tell. Because it is just a timestamp of that particular time period. Right? Now 60 years have passed. What has happened to that person? They cannot tell from the horoscope. Right? Now horoscopes can be made for different bases. It can be made for when the child was born, or when maybe a temple was built, or when a dog was born. You can actually write a horoscope for your dog. When a dog was born, just look up, find where the stars are, where the planets are, write it down. You have a horoscope of your dog. And if you take two such horoscopes and take it to an astrologer, without telling that it belongs to two dogs, they will match it. They'll match their police without a problem.
I've got to give this a shot. This sounds so much fun. I have three cats,
Yeah, I have to.
and two of them are sisters. I'd have something incestuous happening. But so now the horoscope,
Yeah.
now I've always heard that these horoscopes are incredibly scientific, when in fact there is absolutely no science in it at all. But where do the people say that there is the science? How do these people figure out what is the methodology of the astrologer looking at your horoscope and then figuring out what to tell you of the questions that you're asking?
So remember I told you that it is one of the brilliant inventions of old time, right? So if something is that brilliant, then obviously it has to be scientific in some aspects,
Yeah.
right? So it is scientific to an extent,
Hmm.
right? So these people use these horoscopes in a brilliant manner. So let's say, for instance, let's take this time period. Okay, let's take this time period at right now, what 9 o'clock, child is born, right? And the stars are aligned in a certain manner, the planets are aligned in a certain manner. So there will be certain planets next to certain constellations, right? So they divided this zodiac into 12 parts.
Hmm.
So six above, six below. Consider that they still consider the earth as flat. So six below is a flat earth below, not the globe.
Okay.
So starting from the east side to the west, they've divided it into six parts,
Okay.
six below and six above as well. So it is basically the 360 degrees is divided into 12 parts, and they have 12 constellations at each 30-degree locations. So that's 360.
Hmm.
Okay. Now At this point, they note that, okay, Sun is in Sagittarius or Aries or whatever. Now, after a certain time has passed, let's say a prince is born, a child of for a king is born.
Yeah.
Now, after so many years, they want to find out what is the age of this child. Let's say after 30 years, when the child is about to become the king, the next king. What I was telling you was that there is a child born to a king and a queen, right? So they mark the positions of the planets and the stars with respect to the constellation.
Yeah.
Now, certain time period has passed.
Mm.
Now, what they understood, what the classical astronomers understood, is that the planets, which are the ones which are moving, the stars remain there throughout. What you're seeing in the sky is what your great grandfather saw. The same stars in the same positions. They are
Yeah.
not changed
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
Okay.
Minuscule.
But these planets keep moving around these constellations in certain orbits,
Mm.
which follow certain time periods. For instance, Mercury completes one orbit, which goes, an orbit is, it goes from one star to the next, it comes back to the same star within 1 year. Same with Sun, same with Venus, because they are too close to the Sun, right? Mars takes about 1.5 years, right? Then Jupiter takes about 12 years to make one complete rotation of the zodiac. Saturn takes 29.5 years, right? So suppose you have this particular time period locked in a horoscope. Say after 30 years, you look at where Saturn was today and you look at where Saturn was 30 years later, when you're actually looking at the horoscope, you see how many positions Saturn has changed. If Saturn has made a full rotation, then that means that 29.5 years have passed. So Saturn was in Sagittarius 30 years ago. Now it has come back to Sagittarius, which means it has completed one full rotation, which means 29.5 years have passed. Now, if you divide 29.5 by 12 constellations, you can find out that if Saturn has moved two constellations, you would know that 5 years have passed. If it is, let's say, 2.5, you know that 5 years have passed.
Right.
So this was how they calculated time when there were no calendars and clocks. So that is why I call it the most brilliant invention of mankind, because otherwise they had no way to know the passage of time. So all this bit is scientific. That is where it stops.
Yeah. And there are a lot of ancient civilizations which we, of course, it's a completely different category of conversation, which is about ancient civilizations and the structures that they built. A lot of them were focused on the calculations of not just horoscopes, but I mean, of stars and their positions and eclipses and the time of year that it was and harvest times, etc., etc. They've humans spent an inordinate amount of time and effort and manpower, that is effort, in actually constructing these things to be able to calculate the time of the year it was. And but I guess I'm just guessing, I'm asking in as a guess, once you've assigned certain meanings to a certain time of year, to a planet moving into a different constellation, you start just keep on adding more layers to that, and it start becoming more and more either more specific to a person or more generic when you're coming to things like, what do you call it, the what do you call those statements, the Barnum statements. Yes, exactly. So it becomes more generic for the individual, but it sounds more specific.
That is where the astrology bit comes.
Exactly. So is that the case that people just kept assigning more and more meaning to each of these, more layers of meaning to each incident that was foretold by the position of the stars?
See, that is where I started where you started as well. That it is not humans were brilliant. Those days, these people who invented or they discovered that stars moved in certain patterns, planets move within these star patterns in certain time periods. Brilliant. I'm sure it is not one person who discovered all this. It is collectively a generation. Because if you have to wait 29.5 years to for Saturn to make a complete rotation and for us to find that out, it couldn't be one single person. It had to be multiple generations of people who actually worked on this. So it's brilliant. It's when it is there where science stops, when you can calculate time based on the stars. That is where astronomy or classical astronomy ends.
Hmm.
That is where it ends being scientific. The rest of the stuff, actually called as astrology, which
Yeah.
is attributing stuff to these stars apart from knowing time, that is the scam. That is the pseudoscience. That is not something. That is completely BS.
Yeah.
So, how they have manipulated these stars and planets, how they have made people believe that these things have got an influence in their lives is the pseudoscientific part. As I was talking about, these people who actually believe in astrology or the astrologers need to answer these questions that what influence, how does the influence happen when it is farther from us and closer to us? That is question number one. The second is they only have 12 zodiac signs, right?
What happened to
Even if you count,
Ophiuchus?
sorry?
What happened to Ophiuchus?
Oh, the 13th one. Yes, the 13th one, but that is not calculated in astrology. Ophiuchus is not considered there.
Very
Okay.
conveniently.
In fact, if you look at the astronomical union today, we have 88 constellations, not 12
Well,
as well. Even if you consider 12 constellations or 12 zodiac signs, as they call it, right? We have 800 billion people. Is that it? 8 billion people. That's 800 million people, right? 8 billion people today.
yeah.
Now you're 8 billion divided by 12. Let's take, for instance, let's say there are 10 zodiac signs.
Yeah.
8 billion divided by 10. You have what? 80 crore people? 80 crore people all having the same birth chart.
Exactly.
They follow the same constellation.
So, according to Western astrology, I have always said this. So, if you're an Aries, you must be identical to the next Aries. And there's always some excuse. No, it's not about that. It's about a temperament. It's about this. It's about that. So, there's always a little around it. And
They try to bring it away.
but the Indian one is trickier because then they're saying no, but it depends on which planet was in which constellation at that time for this to have happened, for this person to have been born. So it's not just one astrological sign that tells them, but there is a lot more to be calculated accordingly. Isn't that? I'm guessing that's the case.
So let's break that apart as well. Okay.
Do it.
Let's suppose that, okay, you're telling that everything depends on that particular time period when a child is born. The stars determine the child's destiny and all that.
Yeah.
Let's say, for instance, a child is born in a posh hospital in Andheri, Mumbai. Okay, and down below there is the Andheri slums, where when another child is born to slum dweller. Both are born at the same time, right? There is nothing stopping Indians from being born at the same time. Indians are very good at it,
Oh
right?
yes.
So, do you think that the child which is born to affiliated parents in a five-star hotel, a hospital in Mumbai, and a slum dweller's child will have the same destiny?
Absolutely not. But their temperaments might be the same.
So temperaments, if they say that is the case, then take the case of people who are born in the same zodiac signs. Like I am a Libra. I was born in the sign Libra. So there is myself, there is Kim Kardashian, there is Kamala Harris, there is I think there are more. So do we have anything similar in nature, Kim Kardashian and myself?
Do you have a big booty?
Definitely not. Temperament doesn't see. Temperament is not what determines our destiny.
Exactly. Very true. But
If that is the case, then they should have the same destiny. Yes, there are some dog millionaires, but no.
yeah. There's a very interesting thing that I saw on, I think it was The Line, the call-in show, which as atheists and
The line, yeah.
calling in.
Marginalities.
Exactly. So Matt Dillahunty once got a call about astrology. And he's, I don't even talk about astrology. And then, but then of course he proceeded to talk about astrology. And he said that there is
One
one,
word. Yeah.
exactly. You've seen that one, right?
Twins.
Twins, exactly. Twins. What do you do when twins are born and they turn out to be completely different people? And I have a couple of twins in my house. So my cook has an identical twin brother, and they were born maybe a minute or two apart. And they, so my cook is passionate about cooking. This is what he does. He enjoys his work, and he's taken up by it, and he's never really had too much of an interest. He's had a somewhat like a passing interest in photography, but not significantly. While his brother is now working as a photographer and a videographer and an editor, where he's completely absorbed in that work. As far as their personalities are concerned and their temperaments are concerned, I am not sure. I don't know them that well yet, but they seem to be pretty distinctly different people with very distinctly different paths. If there's nothing else that I can determine, they're on very different paths, even if they live in the same house with me.
So, if you talk about this, if you tell an astrologer about twins, then they'll suddenly switch and say that, but they're still not born at the same time. They were born, let's say, 10 minutes apart. So,
Yeah,
they try to bring precision to the time factor.
exactly.
Then, tell them one more word, Siamese twins.
Yeah.
How about that? There is a very famous Siamese twin girls. I think they were born in Iran or somewhere. I forgot their names. I mentioned it in my video, I think. Some Baden. I don't know, you can look it up on Google. These Siamese twins, they lived quite a long time and they wanted to get separated because they had completely different personalities. But then finally, when they were separated, when doctors told them that they might not live for a long time and all that, one lady I think died very soon after the surgery. The other person died 1.5 years later. So they didn't even die at the same time.
Sometime. Yeah.
Although they were born at the same time.
Yeah.
The destinies, if the stars had something to do with it, then they should have had the same destiny. Because they were born at the same time, not even minutes apart.
Exactly. And of course, we have, and that is, and it, again, it comes down to the same thing. Whether it's every 12th person being exactly the same as you, or even if you say that every second of every day has a slightly different thing, there, in a world of 8 billion people, there are people being born at the exact same time and almost exact same place all the time, everywhere across the world. It's just, it's mind boggling how people can figure that out. But now, the thing is, so this is astrology of the stars. How does it connect back to the astrology of the Nadi Patra?
So basically, what these Nadi astrologers do, and this is practiced mainly in a temple in Tamil Nadu called the Vaitishwaran Temple, Vaitishwaran Koil Temple. Right. So if you go to that temple, just outside that temple, there are small shops, and inside that sits these Nadi Jyotishas, as they are called. Right. Everybody claims they are the most original ones. Right.
Yeah.
But the myth is that I think Shiva or somebody wrote to Shiva was having a conversation with Parvati or something, and so at one point he wrote down everything that's going to happen to everybody in this world, right? And Agastya the sage heard it, or the story goes something like that, right? Again, I mentioned it in the video that I've done on Nadi astrology. The only thing is that I don't have space in my brain to recollect all this rubbish. I don't have space for storing all this rubbish. So I tend to forget all these things. It's not required. So that is where Nadi Jyotisha comes in, that every person's life is written in these palm leaves. Right? Now again, 8 billion people.
Yeah.
How
And
many
growing.
palm leaves should there be if you consider that at least 5 billion people might have lived and passed on from this world so far.
It's something like 90, that comes to life forms actually. 99.9% of all things that have ever lived have already died.
Right.
Uh,
So don't bring evolution into this segment. Yes.
yeah, we're going to be here for a long time.
Don't get me talking on evolution now.
Okay, focus.
Yeah. So, and these people who hold these 8 billion palm leaves, or more than that, if you consider the people who have lived here and died, how much space do you think they would need? If you actually keep 1 rupee coin from here, if you have 1 crore 1 rupee coin from keep on top one on top of the other, it could probably reach the moon.
Yeah.
And you're talking about 8 billion people's palm leaves kept there in one small hut.
Yeah.
Like so.
And
And
apparently, every small hut has got every person's.
yeah, every hut has got every person's. So just imagine now when this was counted, and a lot of people have countered this. There's one person who actually visited one of these Nadi Jyotishas, and he pretended to be a believer and all that. And whatever they told him was absolute rubbish, absolutely against what he actually was. So he has debunked it by going there. But you don't need all these things. In fact, there is a Sun News documentary which I believe has been taken off from YouTube. I don't know if you still can find it, which came out with this expose that these palm leaves are actually made in local villages down there, and they are scribbled upon. The language in which it is written is called Bhattacharya, which is no longer practiced in. Some people may know it; it's an ancient language. Some people may know it, but if you get your own palm leaf, you can't read it because you don't understand the language. Only these people are supposed to have the knowledge of these languages, right? So it makes it more convenient for them to do all this. They look at you, they ask you questions. They ask you, does your father's name start with V? And then they keep fishing for it. Like this is hot, this is cold reading. So they basically ask you, keep asking you, and then they finally tell your father's name.
Mm.
What is so special about it? You have a father, he has a name. He's told you that. What is so special about it? You forget that you did not come to that astrologer to know your father's name. But when they tell you that father's name,
Ah,
then it's like standing before slaughter. You're shocked. You forget that you are the one who's fed all the information to him.
mm.
But when he comes out with a name, which any mentalist would be able to do without doing all these tricks, right?
Absolutely.
You're shocked. And that shock is what captures him. That is the moment that you're gripped. You forget that you didn't come for knowing your father's name or your mother's name. You came for something else. You had 100 million problems in your life. You came for a resolution to all that. But once you get stunned, then the slaughter happens. Then whatever he tells you is you're going to believe it. And then you make it. Who makes astrology? Not the astrologer. It is the person to whom the astrology prediction is made, is who makes it right. They will tell you something vague, like how you said, an accident will happen when you're 30. Define accident.
Absolutely.
Me slipping down on the bathroom floor, I could say it's an accident. Or
Yeah.
I could have an accident. I could have an accident on the road.
Yeah.
So you have to define accident. No astrologer is going to tell that, okay, on June 31st, you will travel in a bus, and on that seat, you will find a bag or satchel with 1 lakh rupees in it. No astrologer will tell you that. They will tell you next year, around June, August, you may get rich, you will come into a lot of money, or you will come into prosperity. This is how they say. They will not even tell you money. They'll say a lot of prosperity will happen.
Yeah.
Now, even if you find a 100 rupee note on the floor, that is prosperity for you because you have that thing in your mind that, oh, the astrologer told me that this year, at this particular point of time, I will get prosperous. Look, I found a 100 rupee note. I'm prosperous. And look how you make it. You make the astrologer right. The astrologer has only got to tell whatever comes in his mind, and that's it, finished. You will always count the hits and use the misses.
Exactly. And that's one thing that has always amazed me as to why a person who is given such extremely vague information ends up having the most incredible reading in their memory. They remember all the hits, they forget all the misses. But not only are those hits remembered, they are embellished with so much detail that you've added on to it by yourself. And it's incredible the amount of detail that one adds onto it. And then, of course, the further back the reading was, the more embellished it becomes.
Oh, you forget. It's Murphy's law in action. It's basically Murphy's law in action. Like, for instance, I'm sure everybody here in this podcast and yourself and myself have had this experience. You get a call, you want to write down a number, you pick up a pen, that pen won't work.
Yeah,
Or you are waiting in the bus to go to a college, you're in a hurry, right? You're late for work or you're late for college or whatever. Every bus in the opposite direction will keep going. Yours will never come,
exactly.
right? And this is exactly where Murphy's law, this is counting the hits and losing the misses. Because every time you have had a phone call and you have had a pen working properly, your concentration was on the phone number. You wrote down the phone number, you forget about the pen working.
I've
But
come up with this.
the moment the pen doesn't work, it registers in your mind. Trash pen.
I've come up with a couple more. One is that you will always get a phone call as soon as you go into your bath.
Of course. But the number of times you've had a bath without having a phone call will
Isn't
outnumber.
exactly.
It is like,
Also,
yeah, yeah, go ahead.
another thing that I've also noticed is that I always get the most amazing numbers when I get an OTP or something like that. Like 440011 or something of that sort. And I'm like, oh, that's a nice one. How do I always get these? But now I remind myself that when I get a completely random number that I can't remember, I never note that down as, oh, wow, I just got a completely, really random number that I just, I'll never be able to remember. But I always remember the patternistic ones.
We are pattern seeking and
Like,
we will recognize patterns when we see it. So this is basically it. You are basically making those predictions right.
yeah.
Now, if I just add on to it, now if for instance they talk about the birth time and all that, right? What is a birth time? Is it the time that you come out of the mother's womb? Is that your birth time? You didn't pop into your mother's womb just 5 minutes prior to that, right?
Yeah.
You were there for close to 9 months.
Yeah.
From the zygote, and you grew there, right? You did not pop into existence just like that. So, what are these astrologers saying that when you come out of the mother's womb, that is when these planets have an influence on you? What about when you were inside the womb? You were just covered with a bit of flesh and bones, right? Did they not have an influence? Big planets like Jupiter, Saturn, big planets. Did they not have an influence when you were shielded by a few bones and a few flesh? If
Yeah.
that is the case, if the astrologer tells you that you will die at 30, right? If you shield yourself with a little bit of bones and flesh, would you be away from the planet's influence? Can you escape it?
That sounds like a great plot to a serial killer movie.
How do you get them started?
Yeah, and it's a wonder how the kind of loopholes that one has to jump through to make sense of this. And of course, you have cold readings, and I'm sure at this day and age, we have hot readings as well, which are basically when a person has actually looked you up and then starts giving you very specific information about yourself. And with social media, I believe that is super easy.
Yeah, with today's social media and AI, right? There is AI tools which you can go and look up everything about you. Knowing something about you is so easy today. But forget all that. If I go into that, then they will say that these people are high school dropouts. They don't know social media and all that. They don't
Doesn't matter.
go. Yeah, they don't base it on all that. They just base it on simple heart reading techniques, cold reading techniques. They know how to fish the information from you. That's it.
Absolutely.
Simple as that.
I had a very interesting incident which happened. So, when I was going to get married, I'm now divorced, but when I was going to get married, my wife suddenly called my to be wife at that point of time. My fiance calls me up and says, listen, my dad is going to a Jyotishi right now, and he is going to look up your birth date, and he's asking me for your biodata. So you've written out your biodata, but the time you've given for your birth is not right. It's not working on the website.
Okay.
So if I put in your date of birth and time and I put in mine, it's leading to some conflict. So what was the like, give me another time. I'm like, what do you mean give me another time? I don't like she's like, okay, let's try 15 minutes later. So she put 15 minutes later. And then she was like, no, that doesn't work either. Since she put 30 minutes later. And then she's like, oh, that's still a little weird. Then it was 45 minutes later. And she's like, okay, this works. Okay, I'm sending my dad this one. So she quickly typed, edited the bio data, sent it to her dad. I said, okay, this is his date of birth and time and everything. And that's what worked. And one could argue that it was written in the stars that we were not meant to be. Because we altered that time and made her parents believe that it would have been a fortuitous wedding, but alas, it was not. And here we
You,
are, divorced as hell.
you could read it like that. But what if it had nothing had happened? What if everything went smooth? There's a chance, it's a 50-50 chance.
Yeah, it
What
could be.
happens 50-50 chance. Either it
Absolutely.
goes through or doesn't. So I, all these are people looking back at things. It's called hindsight bias. You just go back and think that,
Exactly.
oh, this is what has happened. This could have led to this.
And that is exactly it. That's the hindsight bias plays into this so well that everybody looks back and says, oh, but they were right. I hadn't done it. This is exactly the example. That's why I cited this example, is because if I was not more of a critical thinker, I would have thought that, oh my God, this was why. In fact, I am quite sure that if her dad finds out, and my ex-wife's dad, if you're watching this, which I doubt you are, but if he finds out about this, he is so going to be pissed and he's going to be like, oh, I saw this coming.
You should actually probably tell the name of the astrologer as well so that they can go and look it up as well, look him up as well. They can-
No, but the weird thing is, what was on the website lines up exactly with what the astrologer said. So they probably refer to the same website.
Yeah, but what is a website? Website is just we have given them the data, right? It's basically all these computer jyotish and all those things. We have actually given them the planets, positions, and all that. It just computes it. That's it.
Exactly. So they came up with the same thing. So at least they've standardized the practice. One can give them that. It's not all complete horseshit, but at least they've standardized the process so that if you don't have to go and pay a Jyotishi to do this, when you can actually just go to the website and figure it out for yourself.
Yeah, if you want to get easily scammed, this is the better way because
Absolutely.
at the end of the day, it is a scam.
I would say get scammed for free if you want to get scammed instead of going to someone and paying them to scam you.
But that is not how people believe in this work. They would want if everything told by a Jyotishi himself. You have Dhirendra Shastri and all that doing the rounds these days. He does pravachans and all this stuff. If somebody were to ask me which are the three most pseudoscientific of all pseudosciences, I would categorize astrology, homeopathy, and manifestation at number one.
Oh, man, okay, next two episodes of Rationable Conversations with you are sorted now.
I could come up with more. We could probably start a daily show at this point.
I know, seriously, we can just keep going at this rate. But unfortunately, we have run out of time. I did say I wouldn't keep you beyond an hour. And it's really passed really quickly. I haven't really, I just, it seems like we started 5 minutes ago. It's really weird.
It's fine. It is. I definitely enjoyed it. It's definitely an honor to come to your podcast and do it. This is my first time coming on a live podcast and doing it. In fact, we did it once a couple of years back. Really looking
Oh,
forward. You just tell me the zero signs and I'll be there.
but this is so much fun, man. We will definitely do a part two and a very soon, in fact, because I definitely want to talk about manifestation. That is one of my pet peeves. And I want to like I've actually gotten into, but we will not get into it at this point of time. Right now, thank you so much for joining us on this. It has been an absolutely fantastic show, and I will be back. We'll be back together soon. I'm quite sure. And thank you all for joining us for Rational Conversations. Another episode is done. And please follow Anand's YouTube channel. It's called Pale Blue Thoughts. It's absolutely fantastic, amazing content, and he's been at it much more regularly and much more frequently than I have. So I'm just saying, go check it out. And if you liked this conversation, please like and subscribe to this channel. Follow us both. There's no competition. And I will see you next time. Until then, thank you very much and stay rational.